late, and I
Mm-hmm.
can tell him to be quiet and listen.
All right. Well, just curious because I'm pretty new to the whole lecture thing. Because I'm not sure
Yeah.
there's a particular format, but are you just gonna be mainly talking and then we can ask questions like mid lecture, or do you want us to wait?
Yeah, you can. I'd prefer you um, like mime raising your in outside the lunchroom,
Mm-hmm.
just so that I can get to a natural stopping point and then answer the question rather than being bulldozed over.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
To be able to let you speak, I'm probably gonna play Minecraft.
That is so fucking valid, Lamb.
Like, I don't want to
All
bog you
right.
down with too many questions. I know that you'd there's a lot here, and to be able to let you flow at your own pace is probably important. If I have a question, it's probably going to be answered along the way anyway.
Let me put it this way. There's so many notes here. There is no way conceivable that I would be able to flow entirely at my own pace because there's no organization. This is
Damn.
my batshit ramblings at 3 a.m. Basically, as a D&D setting.
They're
All
good
right.
with their bed, you know.
So we good to
All
get
right,
started,
well-
everybody?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I read DM Venice. He's still offline. God, man. Okay.
Yeah, whatever. All right. So, to those on YouTube who don't know who I am, I'm RFCK Olive. I write incessantly. I have a problem. I'm joined now by Hannah, Fizzy, Lambchopper, Land,
Hi.
and hopefully Venice if he decides to show up. If anybody wants to say hello, you can unmute. That's fine.
Hey,
Howdy.
hey, YouTube. How you doing?
This is probably going to be
Howdy,
unlisted
we're
anyway.
Fizzy, also known
Whatever.
as the Plague on Humanity.
Yeah. Got all sorts of talented people in here, and today I'm going to be rambling on for the next however long about my 1,000-page, 6-year long in the making D&D setting. So this all starts with a creation myth. The creation myth involves a sort of maternal capital G god named Sophia, who fell asleep and in her dream birthed 12 other gods. I could name them all off, but most of them don't matter until later. The ones that do matter are Tebi, Majat, and Kamalagi. Kamalagi also went to sleep, so he's not important yet, but he will be soon. Tebi and Majat are kind of the not quite god and devil sort of thing, but it's the cycle of creation and destruction. So Majat, being the god of destruction, got into a scuffle with Tebi. Tebi is often envisioned in most of the religions of the setting as a child in raggedy clothing, but with the eyes of an old man. And he sits on a throne that is now empty, but we'll get to that. So he gets in Tebi and Majat get in a fight. Majat is now lies dormant. His bones are the bones that the world has been built on. Via Tebi's work. Tebi then disappeared as his creation was complete. But Majat still can exert influence onto the world. So this all took place according to where we are now. According to the giants, or the Goliaths, I should say, exactly 11,782 years ago, and some change. Yeah, go ahead, Land.
So I've noticed in previous pieces of media that typically when we have a time frame involved, sometimes how would you say there are lengths of time used. So, like example, in Star Wars, because there aren't years really present in there, they go like
Right.
they have to use it basically. Oh, this is how many years before the Battle of Yavin, or this one fight that happened in Star Wars that's really major and whatnot. I'm curious. Do you also have your own time frame system in this universe, or no? It's just like, oh, it's just many years for this thing, or this many years for that.
So, that's a very good question. There is some variance here.
Mhm.
Time is measured differently by different people, but speaking specifically of the Goliaths, who are in, we'll get to it later.
Mhm.
But the Goliaths are literally 100% accurate whenever they give temporal time information.
Oh,
Um, So you know how in Lord of the Rings, elves can literally see past the curvature of the Earth?
yeah, actually.
Yeah. So in that same sort of sense, where they have basically perfect spatial vision, um, Goliaths, by their own calendar, have perfect temporal vision.
Huh. Look at that then.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And we'll get to why that's important in a minute. So we'll skip forward about 10,000 years in history just to keep it within, a couple hours lecture, because I could go on about like the establishing of literally all of the kingdoms and the confederation of the tribes. Let me actually drop in a map that I made. That I lost the book that I had the map in, but I can draw it from memory at this point. There we go. I'll put it on screen. Uh, I'll draw it on screen. So the really important power players here on this map are Tesne, Went, and the Black and Red Forest orc tribes. We'll start with the humans, just because it's an easy frame of reference. Tesne is a ancient kingdom that follows your relatively standard feudalism method of government. They engage in more mercantile practices. In fact, Went was a colony of Tesne on the traditionally orc continent island thing in the center there. However, of course, the story always goes, Went declared independence, a bloody war happened, and we'll get to Went in a minute. Tesne is currently being, or, well, for the purposes of right now, is currently being led by King Erev, who has been king for 500 years. Now, humans do not have a longer lifespan than normal in the set. And we'll get to what happened when we get to the actual story portion. Went, of course, being colonized land, has issues with the Black and Red Forest orcs. They've tried their best to sort of make do, but they're an electoral government, so every couple years things get dicey one way or the other. Uh, the Black Forest Confederated tribes are so in the history of the Black Forest orcs. Once Tesne started invading, they decided that all of their little tribal chiefdoms would basically band together to push out Tesne. The Black Red Accord is where the Black and Red Forests. So Black and Red is a cultural thing where Black is north and Red is east. Sort of like how the Huns. They had colors that corresponded to cardinal directions, which is why the quote-unquote white Huns that invaded Europe were called that, because east corresponds to white in Hunnic culture, to my understanding. So it's that same sort of deal. It's just different name. The Red Forest orcs, on the other hand, decided that instead of they kept bickering essentially. So one of the tribes, the leader by the name of Garok, he took up arms and he forced the rest of the Red Forest tribes to come together. And he calls himself essentially the Chief of Chiefs. So the Kaval ruins, about 1,000 years ago, a war started between the native dragons and the elves of Kathnir, the Tesnans, specifically. The Went colony was not really a thing yet, but the Tesnans, the dragons, and Kathnir. Kathnir being the high elves that lived there before Kathnir disappeared. Kaval was razed to the ground with a combination of elven magic and human fuckery. And no dragons have been seen in over 1,000 years, essentially. 500, the soldier, the general specifically, that led the razing of the capital city was Arab. We'll talk a little bit about the land of giants. Giant and Goliath mean the same thing in both languages, but they are not related whatsoever. You don't see giants around here. They're sort of they're a mythical force more than anything. But Po Gelai is the Goliath term for the land of Goliaths. Kolshak, dwarf land, essentially, has no contact with anybody else and haven't since the Dragon. They shut themselves out completely. They want nothing to do with it. Any questions on the world as it stands? Okay. Yeah, go for it.
I was going to ask, in regards to the map, how long did it take to come up with it?
The like this specific iteration of it, or the map in general?
This variation of it, and by any chance, do you have the inspiration for the creation of it?
Oh, so there's a technique that people tend to do where they literally just throw dice at a sheet of paper and then draw it. I decided, I completely mixed up fucking East and West. I'm an idiot. Anyway, during my whole narration, but whatever.
Just bring it up now.
yeah, I literally just drew it all and then thought of where people would be, and then spliced it up like that. I tried not to be too overt with any of my like land placement per se.
Mhm.
But the I tried to assign land based on what I thought would make sense for a history.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. So now we get to the actual story portion where people lived in the world. So the story starts with my favorite player character of all time, uh, my little siblings, chaotic evil goblin warlock named Chombo. Um, goblins are a sort of, they're functionally orcs. They are also native to the middle continent there. Um, there's not really they've essentially assimilated into one another, orcs, goblins, and goblinoids in general. They are technically distinct, like they're not going to have um, viable offspring with one another, but there's an understanding of a social and labor utility that commingles with them. Anyway, goblins. The specific goblin Chombo. He lived in Went for many years. Double checking because my phone went dark. Audio still good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks,
Yep,
Lamb.
seems like it.
All right. Chombo lived in Went. Was born in on a border city between Went and the Black Forest Confederated Tribes. They did a little bit of sort of minor adventuring for a while.
They did a
And
little bit of trolling.
yeah, just a wee bit of trolling,
Just a
as it
pinch.
were. Actually summoned the god of life and death.
Substantial amount of trolling.
So that was a whole thing where my husband ran a game where he put us up against a Kraken at level 3, and I said, okay, well, if you're going to be an ass about it, so we conspired to have an in-universe explanation for how we for how we would summon the god of life and death. It was God, I had the paper for it. See, this is the sort of shit, like, please organize your notes. Ebris, god of life and death. He appears as um, a skeletal deer covered in moss. So,
What
yeah,
happens if you
very,
smoke
very,
the
very.
moss?
What's that?
What happens if you smoke the moss?
No one. Very few people see Ebris and live to tell the tale. I mean, he is also
I'm gonna
the
figure it
god of
out.
death.
I'm gonna figure it out.
Okay. Anyway, so word reaches them that they've been tasked by the chief of one of the main chiefs of the Black Forest Confederated Tribes to hunt down a book that is within Pakogali territory. So they take a ship to the land of giants, where they meet one of the Goliath tribes there. The Goliaths have their sense of their temporal understanding comes from much how elves have innate magic. They have innate psionics, and their understanding of time and the physics of time is both, like, it goes in hand with their psionic ability. So any village elder may not necessarily remember that far ago, but can tell from just the placement of the stars in the night sky how long it has been since the universe's creation. Anyway, so the well, I guess now chief of the specific tribe of giants, they landed in the, to call it a port would be, a little bit more than what it is, but they land in the sort of dry dock, and help him out with a sort of plague that has been going. As you can see in the map that I posted, there is a small little bit of, like, a little shittily drawn mountain here. The ship passed by it, and they landed about, like, at the northeastern tip of the island. And there was some sort of plague of like, grass was starting to go dead, cattle were getting sick for no reason, and the only place that was unaffected by it was a temple that was made out of, like, literal bone. Like, you could see that it was made out of bone. It was only a small little, like, shrine too. So they enter it, and sitting over there is a scepter. Chombo, being Chombo, takes the scepter. And Tebby appears in their mind. Tebby, the abdicated king, Tebby, the child king, appears and tells Chombo, listen, King Arav of Tesne, the reason that he has lived for 1,000 years and has been king for 500 of those is because Majat made him a lich. You need to collect the scepter, the book, and the amulet, and you need to both seal off Majat's influence and kill King Arav. So he gets the scepter. He goes back to the Black Forest tribal leaders and say, listen, there was no book there, but I did get this cool scepter. And I'm like, well, okay. We're not going to pay you because you didn't find the thing you were looking for. But we have a task that I'm sure you can't fuck up, because we know that these things are going down here. In this mountain area, like right before the mountains between the orc tribes and Kolshak, was a contingent of orcs that we sent over there to colonize all that unused. Go find out what happened to them, because we haven't heard from them in 6 months. So he goes over there, and he walks into the sort of, like, research area camp, like the and the camp is empty. People's belongings are still in there and everything, but the tents are old and run down and ragged. And it's nighttime. All the trees around him are dead. He looks into the distance and he sees this giant cathedral made out of that same bone. So he walks over to the cathedral and looks into one of the stained glass windows. And what he sees are a mockery of the orc form. They have like stretched out, emaciated limbs. Their teeth are much narrower and much sharper. And there's a dwarf on the altar that is being stretched by some sort of magic to look like these orcs in the broken stone camp. So, finding a cult of Majat, Chambo decides to burn down the cathedral in the middle of this service. As chaos ensues, they find the sort of leader of the cult has the book that they were looking for. It's a tome called, I think it's called the I think it called it something weird like the Omnitheosis or something like that. Basically, the book, it's a magical book that contains all of the world religions' holy texts. So, like, if you were in like one sect or another, your specific writing would be in. And it updates every time a new religion is founded. And Majat cult found it, and now have essentially the Book of Vile Darkness because of this, otherwise very mundane magic book. So Chambo retrieves the book. I'm not going to go into the details. It was a full 5-hour campaign. I'm not, or 5-hour session. I'm not going into it too much. The amulet is found somewhere in the Caval ruins. I don't remember that part of it that much because it was the very end of the it was the very end of that session. And as all the artifacts were together, a portal opened back at Brokenstone, where it was plain to see that the bone cathedral had crumbled in on itself and had formed a very large door. So Chambo takes a boat back up to Wint and is passing through where he meets a guy by the name of Brad Leonard. He's a baker by trade. He just wants to grill, essentially. Real quick, any questions before I go on about Brad Leonard?
I have none.
Okay. Hannah, Lambchopper?
I'm alive.
Do you have any questions about?
Not yet, no.
Okay. I trust if Lambchopper had questions, she would say something. All right. She goes and she talks to Brad Leonard about how things are going. He's a very kind old man. He's been working in his trade for, he doesn't even remember how long. He talked about his family life. It was rough in the beginning. His mom was a narcoleptic, and his two brothers never stopped fighting. And he gives Chombo some bread, and basically like some like really good bread that I had like, it acted as a potion of healing just because it's that good. We have a house rule where if you have like a home cooked meal and it's amazing, it either makes a short rest a long rest, or it acts as a healing potion. So Chombo reports back to the Black Forest tribe leaders, and they come to an agreement that the artifacts should be locked away, essentially. And as they're going to do this, some broken stone flesh shapers burst in and kill everyone, including Chombo. Chombo opens the Chombo basically like wakes up at the door to Bread Leonard's bakery. And he opens the door, and Bread Leonard is kneading some bread that he's kneading some dough that he's about to put in the oven. And he looks over and says, "Oh, found yourself here, huh? Well, Everest was kind enough to bring you here. I am sure you have some questions." And this is where Bread Leonard explains that he's actually Kamalagi, brother of Tebi and Majat. And he's been lying low, essentially. He is the god of ambition, the cycle of ambition and rest. And he believed that it was his time to rest, and now it is his time for ambition. So he revives Chombo, and everyone there, essentially everyone that was there. The newly alive push back the Broken Stone orcs, and Chombo makes their way to Hesne, because they figure, rightly so, that the door is a result of King Arev's influence on the Broken Stone orcs. They sneak into the castle. The castle is only guarded out front by a guard that never seems to change. Like, they never seem to change shifts. And once Chombo breaks in, they can plainly see that the guards they're undead, essentially. Chombo goes up to the essentially like observatory area of the castle and finds a skeleton at a desk with a crown on the on the desk itself. They're looking around at the tomes and finds a duplicate of the actual Book of Vile Darkness itself, instead of the duplicate copy that was given to the Broken Stone. When Chombo picks up the book, King Arev, the skeleton sitting at the desk, gets up, puts the crown on, and a battle ensues between Chombo and King Arev. Chombo, of course, is victorious. King Arev, instead of dying, laughs, opens a portal to Brokenstone, and opens the door to Majat's like mind realm, if that makes any sense. Like the sort of demi-plane that the real essence of Majat comes from, rather than just the body, which is the world. And he laughs and he says, "You can, we can finish this fight in the pain," and disappears through the door. Chombo rushes to go over, door slams in their face, and Chombo opens the door through the use of the Scepter of the Amulet of the Book. It opens to a land made entirely out of bread. He didn't open the door to the pain, he opened it to the pan. The French word for bread. Bread Leonard steps out of the door and says, you are nowhere near strong enough to fight this motherfucker. I need to send you on an errand for me. And then you can come and clap this fool. Any questions before we get to Twist?
I may as well give one.
Alright.
Seeing as Chombo is a fucking evil bastard,
Yes.
what did Chombo want out of killing this guy? What did he plot when he all this?
There is no world to dominate if it is taken over by the pain. Because Majat is trying to get back into its body, which would literally destroy the world because it's built out of his bone. So there's no way that it's a problem of scale. Like there's nothing that I can do to be a rat bastard if there is no world for me to be a rat bastard in.
Okay, so we got caveat stuff kind of going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the dark side thing. Literally, the universe could not or like the setting could not handle their literal alive presence. So it's best not.
Yeah. Yeah, straight up. Like Majat is the world, and if it moves an inch, it's an earthquake. Yeah.
Like a shadowing earthquake, or like a...
Oh, hi, Diva. You stumbled
Hey.
into the middle of a lecture
About what?
about a D&D setting that I've been working on for 6 years.
I'm good.
So, the errand is to go to Kehir, which is on the map there. Kehir has been gone since the dragons got wiped out. Because the dragons got wiped out, and Tesne started eyeing the elves, and the elves went, no thank you, and disappeared. Their entire island simply just up and vanished. As Brad Leonard Kamalaki is talking about all this, Kehir appears over the ocean, and the underside of the island is a giant machine. It settles into the water, and Brad Leonard sends Chombo on his way on the boat. Chombo gets to Kehir, and the elves there are the same elves that have been there for however long, for the past 1,000 years, because of, well, one, they're elves, and come to find out that the entire island of Kehir is a group project by the by the Goliaths and the elves as essentially one gigantic spelljammer. It's a ship.
The island? Sorry.
Yeah, the island. Yeah, the island itself is one giant ship. It's a void vessel or whatever you want to call it. Like it traverses the plains, and the elves and some of the Goliaths that were on there have literally just left the plane and fucked up. So Chambo asks around and goes to the center of the island where a sort of where a university is. And they learn at the university that their entire life, all of this whole map, Majat's bones is not the prime material plane. It is a completely separate affair, and the entire reason this plane is populated is because the Goliaths, humans, elves, and dwarves, along with the orcs, came together after they saw a new plane had been created 11,000 and change years ago, and went to go look at it. And then things broke, and they spread out, and the past 11,000 years of history have been for the elves make the island work as intended, whereas everyone else, because they're so short-lived, has just established societies and kingdoms and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big twist. That was the big poggers moment that really got my players there. So now we get to the map of 2 out of the 3 places in the prime material plane. I literally had to write this. I had to draw all of this in 2 separate books because it's so fucking big. Let's see if my camera will cooperate. Any questions while I fix my lighting for this picture?
At the moment, I have none. It's been a great listen so far.
I'm trying to keep things coherent, but you know me.
Sounds
Yeah.
interesting by the way you're describing it.
Mhm.
This is-
So how did the So I'm assuming that we've kind of got something like the weird Chrono Trigger, like was this big like magical fucking society in like the past that was fucking pretty big on it.
Yeah,
To, like,
except
go there and go there in the first place, because in order to be like conscientious of the stuff and to learn like a new plane of existence, they have to be pretty advanced, right?
yes, the entire society regressed after the ship broke down, and so essentially, what was the Kingdom of Mu, rather than being like this magical precursor civilization, is literally just the land of the elves, and everyone else decided to leave the ship, which was a bad idea.
It was regarded by historians as a bad move.
Yeah, a real fucking bra moment.
What was
what
that?
caused
Time
the ship to
traveling?
like fucking go to like fucking break apart and whatever? I didn't quite catch.
The machine itself couldn't handle the stress of interplanar movement. Like it could do it, but it just couldn't handle the actual strain of it on more than one go. It's very much like the DeLorean breaks down every time you use it kind of thing.
So they made a fucking oops on their machinery. And like
Yeah.
they did it like too large of scale, didn't like build some proper precautions for the thing.
Yeah. The humans claim sabotage by the orcs. The orcs claim sabotage by the dwarves. That sort of thing. But
Who sabotaged it? Oh, sorry.
no one actually sabotaged it. It just kind of broke.
It was built. It was built faulty. That was just it.
Yeah.
Nobody was trying anything. It was just an oops.
I mean, to be fair, this is like the first and only time that this kind of technology has actually been created. Like, this is a prototype.
Mm-hmm.
That is fair.
So, the fact that it actually survives the journey is a miracle. Much less like, asking it to not break after landing. It was kind of a big ask.
That's good to me.
All right, so this is the eastern portion of the map being uploaded now. Let me try to also capture the western portion. I have a note on my map specifying the proper pronunciation of one of the countries.
My
Because
God.
if you pronounce it wrong, it is asshole in Dark Elf. And
That's
where
it?
is my?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Kulu. Kulu is asshole in Dark Elf. Yeah, go ahead, Lambchopper.
So, since there was like a societal regression and whatever, how did the information get destroyed or put out of circulation for it to like?
11,000 years of actual history being turned into legend and that sort of thing, where like there are like these great human heroes and everything like that were actually just guys that were on the ship and everything. The chiefs of the Goliath tribes actually have the most complete history aside from the elves, because they have a rite of passage where they go into a cave where all of this information was preserved on petroglyphs, essentially. So they know about it, but it is akin to folklore, essentially, for most people.
As it was, as its perception was turned into more and more fantasy, like it was maybe shaded within like a few like things here and there, maybe like a logical fallacy was like thrown in.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, you tell the same story for 11,000 years, and who knows what's true anymore. This is definitely not biblical commentary. Yeah.
Nice.
And then
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, I should be raising my hand. My bad.
No, it's fine. I'm still trying to angle this correctly so I can take a picture of the third landmass portion.
I was just gonna say I saw a thing about oral earlier in like a commentary video
Mm-hmm.
where it's like it's a good show and it's a critique on like organized religion, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No worries. All right, so I officially have everything posted. All of these lands have entire histories written about them, explanations for pretty much everything that goes on. Some of these cultures have languages that I have full sheets on. So at this point, this is straight up there's so much for me to talk about. If anyone has any questions off the bat, go for it.
Yeah. So, seeing as it was slowly turned into a myth,
Mhm.
who was trying to? Was there any particular organizations that sought to like tell that story in a way that benefited them, or something else? That
Everyone?
like further added to it.
Part of the myth of like the religion, the church itself of I didn't go too deep in my explanation in the lecture here about the actual religion of Tesne and the whole Majat Tebi thing. But the king of the historical kings of Tesne all trace their lineage back to the quote unquote first man, directly, like firstborn son sort of thing. And Erev claimed to be his reincarnation and the incarnation of Tebi. So yes and no, where these sort of like archetypes and tropes of this story of how everyone got to Majat's bones has been sort of recycled into the religion so much over the past, again, 10,000 years that trying to determine what is religion being used for this purpose and what is actual historical fact being used for this purpose is basically impossible.
Unless you like go on like a literal elaborate quest to do that.
Yeah, like you had to find the like 3 MacGuffins to open the door to where Majat is, and the god of bread tells you, hey, go ask the elves about this. Yeah. That's essentially what happened here.
Fucking sick quest trying to parse like
So
everything
wait.
together as like a bunch of detectives.
So the elves knew the whole time, and they just never corrected anybody or told anybody.
The elves were trying to fix one trying to fix the ship, and 2 kept getting in kerfuffles with everybody else because they're elves. I mean, the fantasy trope elf in this case. So they're from the Dizralfi Empire, which is on page 3. What is now the Dizralfi Kingdom was originally an empire that spanned that entire continent. Them and well, yeah, okay, so the whole god of bread thing, I mean, the reason he's the god of the cycle of rest and action, which is how you bake bread. So he's literally the god of bread. Anyway, yeah, thank you. I lost my train of thought. The elves are snotty little fucks in the fact that they were able to come together with the Goliath in the first place for a research project is, again, a miracle of some ethereal must have done the diplomacy for this, because there is no way that they would have done that otherwise. So I'm sure they could have tried to converse and try to correct people, but they would have put it in such a manner it's just shut
It
the
wouldn't be
fuck
worth
up.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I want to point out a personal favorite over on page 1. It's a little too blurry to see, but if you see in the middle of the weirdly shaped Australia, in
Is
on
it
the
Australia?
north end, on the north end of the page is sort of like this weird crown. And the text in that weird crown is the Vashar exclusion zone. The Vashar, if anyone has read the more obscure splat books for 3rd edition, you know that Vashar are literally the first attempt by the gods to create humans, and it did not work. They're basically the dark elves of humans, down to the torture and murder and everything like that, just because they literally were not given a sense of empathy. So they were essentially all forced into this circular mountain range, and there's basically a prophecy that at the end of time they're going to escape and destroy everything. Yeah. The Laughing Ruins, also on page 1, is along with the Frozen Bog, an artifact of the ancient Jizralfi empire as well. It's the Laughing Ruins was the offshore capital, sort of like like how Rome had 2 capitals, and the Laughing Ruins was where you went to go do crazy shit, like Dark Eldar, pain worship sorts of things. Eventually, when the Empire fell, it collapsed not into essentially like one big experiment pit, and the only thing left in that entire part of the country is laughing ghosts, and that's it.
Wait, what do you mean laughing ghosts? Like just
Like
ghosts of
ghosts of like the sort of elf presence. It's the magical impact of that many elves doing that much like weird magic sex bullshit.
Oh, your mic quality just
Caused
boosted a bunch.
could not enable crisp due to an error. It's probably because my phone's dying. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
So it's like a dropping a ball on like an iron ball on a trampoline. How it will distort things around it, kind of like any depiction of gravity. So that sort of all that magical energy, all the experiences that everyone was having, kind of turned it into this like warp cesspit of and the only thing that remains is just the laughter at the absurdity of like what happened.
So are they laughing because they still think it's funny after all this time?
Yeah, the it's basically like the echoes of these souls laughing at the fact that it all collapsed, and they're the only things that are going to be left in the end.
Sucks to suck, I guess.
Yeah. On page 2, you'll find a nice little spot called the Mome Wastes. So the Mome Wastes are named after the native fauna there. They're called mome beasts. Has anyone here played Space Funeral?
No. Hey, I know what
Nope,
that is
never.
though. It's the RPG, right?
Yeah, made by the Catamites.
Yeah, it's like the weird horse leg.
Yeah,
Uh,
Leghorse
yeah.
Horse.
and Philip. Yeah. So
It's like a
one of
weird
the
mouth.
enemies you can face is called a Mome Beast, and I thought, what if they were scarier? So they're bipedal, tusked monstrosities that will run you down and gore you. And that's just the Space Funeral version. These ones are like 10-foot tall megafauna, apex predators. They don't have any higher intelligence, but that doesn't stop them from being scary as shit. People there survive. They have developed. This is actually a human settlement, or at least what settlements are there. And they developed special spears and special magical boots so that they could jump really high. They're called the Dragoons because it's Final Fantasy Dragoons. And their spear.
Nice.
So the way that they hunt the Mome Beasts for meat is they will jump 50 to 100 feet in the air. The spear itself looks kind of like a boar spear, where it's got this sort of T in the middle. And they'll hook their leg onto the spear, onto that T portion, and drive it down with their entire body weight at basically terminal velocity into a Mome Beast's head.
I would imagine that in order to properly aim this, there are traps to be had in advance, just to kind of like slow it down so you can aim the shot. Because if you missed, that sounds like I just obliterated every bone in my body.
Well, yeah, that's fair. I didn't actually. The one thing I think I didn't plan was in the eventuality that they miss, but that's a fair point. They have an interesting communal matriarchal culture where they're just living to survive. Let's see any other standouts here. Lost Island on page 1 is actually the land of Kahir, because that is the island.
What?
So Kahir, the elf island that is one big machine, is the same as the Lost Island on page 1. The land of the unclean. So flesh shaping is a result of it's basically Majot's magic, and the land of the unclean is where experiments in flesh shaping were sent. It's basically a land of like reject terrors. Don't go there.
That's nice.
The rest is me just like pointing to a location and going, oh, here's the full story of this place. So if anyone has any questions, feel free. I don't even have to remember all of this. I have notes on each of these. The Laughing Ruins is also a Shadowfell portal, essentially. It's one big Shadowfell portal. Back on page 1, the Sanku Sanku is a country that has basically every king, if they're decided to be a good king by their people, is turned into a lich and serves as an advisor for the next king. Their local, pardon?
I did say anything, sorry.
Their local sort of flavor of religion sees undeath as an honor, as like something sacred. So whenever someone dies, their funeral is actually to be raised via necromancy to work in the fields. It's literally necronomics. Yeah.
I fucking hate necronomics. I am the fucking... I'll kill Venice, I swear to God. I hate that he's...
The sentient undead is the wealthy, basically. Unfortunately.
So what you're saying is it's not real necronomics. It's fake fascist necronomics that is set up by not real.
It's basically a weird. Let's see, are they elves? Yeah, they're elves. Of course, they're fucking elves. Elven oligarchy. Of undeath. Yeah.
Do you know exactly like about what a necronomics is in Venice's opinion?
Can we go into this later when I'm not recording?
Sorry. Oh, you're recording? I didn't even fucking know you're I'm so sorry, dude. I'm so
It's okay.
sorry.
It's okay. It's just gonna take me another 10 minutes to take out the whole Wendigoon bit. It's fine.
Oh man. Thanks.
Any other people that were really fucking cool? Oh yeah. So Kolu is the country. Kolu means anus. Kolu means people, and Kolu means table.
How many times have people... Sorry. How many times have people mixed this up and gone in trouble with NPCs?
But do not speak to a dark elf in Dark Elven, or you will say the wrong thing. Basically, it. If you made Chinese harder, that's basically Dark Elf. Page.
Inefficient, clunky language for sure.
Page 2, the Dragonlands / the Crown in the top left corner. So dragons were native to Majot's bones, but I don't remember the exact circumstances that they were on the prime material plane. But selective pressure has made them bipedal. In basically this universe's version of Dragonborn, the D&D kind, not the Elder Scrolls kind. They are mutualists. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm basically done, except for the pillars of creation on the bottom of the page there. The sort of 3 different spots on the map. There's supposed to be a 4th one in that last picture. But oh yeah, go ahead, Lan. Sorry I didn't see you.
No worries. I was gonna ask, since you brought up different languages with this D&D setting, I was gonna ask you if I'm correct too. You said you made up your own languages for this, right? Like 3
Yes. Yes.
How long did they take to make, if you can recall that process?
So I didn't write out full vocabulary lists because that would be insane. But coming up with the grammar, phonology, phonotactics, and in some cases distinct alphabets, I did that mostly for these in an afternoon. I put select passages, like I translated them in place names and stuff.
Like I translated those. So, I did stress test them a little bit, but I didn't go like all out. Like I wrote an entire holy book in Orcish or anything crazy like that. Like, I'm dedicated. I'm not that fucking dedicated, at least not without getting paid. I could theoretically release all my documentation for it, but it would be me essentially like finding 6-year-old notes and questioning why I did things that way and rewriting everything. Yeah.
Well, thinking of stuff around.
Okay, so that's the end of me just pointing at a map and going, check this shit out. Any wrap up questions? Anything like that? Oh, I didn't fucking post the language tree. A better picture of the language tree. So the only super important things I have out here are the difference between deep and surface Vishar. Unbeknownst to the people of unbeknownst to the people in the Vishar exclusion zone area, all the deep mines that the dwarves have taken over that they've forgotten about are now populated by deep Vishar who are just biding their time. Sometimes a dwarven city will go dark because it has been taken over by Vishar, sort of thing. The Dark Elven
got a
words.
question that could like wrap things up.
Yeah.
But I can't ask a stupid question. How
You
much
can ask
of
a
a
stupid
pain in the ass would it be to keep track of dialects in Dark Elf?
Oh
Because
god.
I'd imagine when the base language is already funky, once we start getting into dialects, oh boy.
Okay. So I cannot. Okay, Dark Elf was already such a pain in the ass to write. I refuse to write dialects for Dark Elf. Imagine, if you would, creating a proto-language, because you would have to do that. You'd have to create a proto-language, and then you'd have to make it split off in 1,000 different tiny ways in order for it to be anywhere near realistic. And then have those things each reach their own logical conclusion. That'd be maddening. I'm not doing that.
Yes, do that.
Just imagining the gargantuan effort that it takes in order to get the Scottish equivalent to fucking Dark Elf.
Well, because it's based partially off of Mandarin Chinese, I'd have to like, oh my god, 10,000 years, Lambchopper. Like 10,000 years have passed.
10,000 years can give you such a crook in the neck.
Yeah, except it's my throat from trying to pronounce kunshi.
You just go. That's the entire dialect of the southern region.
All right. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate you listening to me ramble incoherently for the past hour and a half about a D&D setting that maybe only Hannah will actually get to play in.
I feel like I have to turn Crisp off just for people to get the fucking laughter I had at the idea. Because my laughter was literally fucking cut out.
Oh no! Prince missed the entire lecture. Well,
Oh, no.
it's a good thing I recorded it.
Wonderful.
All right.
Now it can be enjoyed in podcast form.
Mm-hmm.
You guys want to see what I'm working on? Oh, sorry.
Final wrap up before I end the recording. Read the Oliverse or else. Listen to the Procrastinators podcast or don't. And unsubscribe from PewDiePie. Have a good night.
Ben's